If you won't give me the money, I will still go. Tino, open the door right now.
Right now, Tinu. You'll kill your mother.
I didn't mean to. I don't know what happened.
That afternoon, Lagos was so hot the road in front of the compound looked like it was wrapped in a thin layer of steam. The late dry season sun slanted down, bouncing off the bullet-scarred sheets of zinc roofing, sending sharp blades of light slicing into the poor tenement yard. The whole place felt like it was drowning in humid heat, even though it was already late in the afternoon. Tinu ran around the compound like a boy who had just swallowed a chunk of burning coal. Sweat ran in long streaks from his neck down his back, gluing his old Super Eagles jersey to his body. He felt like the whole world was moving fast except him, a 17-year-old boy stuck between poverty and pride. Big match tonight. If you don't go, you're a real bush guy. All my guys are going. He yelled at the boys in the yard, trying to sound bold, trying to sound like he was just like everyone else. The boys were standing in the corner of the yard, near a leaning electric pole, and an old speaker blasting distorted Afrobeats. None of them looked truly surprised. None of them reacted like what Tinu said was important. They didn't really care about the match, they cared about whether Tinu actually had money to go. Samuel, the one who liked to mock people the most, curled his lip into a smirk. Hey, you don't have money, Tinu. Your mom won't even give you 100, talk less of 500 for a ticket. The group burst into laughter. The sound wasn't loud, but to Tinu, it felt like someone stomping a boot down on a tin can, the crushed metal squealing with humiliation. He forced a laugh, swallowing the pain into his chest like swallowing a burning stone. Money is small matter. When my mom comes back from the market, I'll get it. I'll be at the viewing center tonight. Trust me. Samuel glanced at him with the lazy contempt of a boy who has a slightly better life, but never realizes how lucky he is. Okay then. We'll see if you're inside tonight, or standing outside the door peeking in like last time. Another wave of laughter. This time, Tinu couldn't laugh. He just couldn't. The fake smile stuck in his throat. Those laughs, they'd followed him for years. Since he was 10, then 12, 14, and now 17. The laughter was always the same, light, careless, supposedly harmless, but cutting into him like a sharp blade. He turned away, staring toward the gate of the compound. That was where Mama Tinu came home every evening, shoulders sagging, shirt soaked in sweat, hands gripping 2 wrinkled nylon bags, her footsteps dragging after standing all day selling at Balagan Market. Lagos, in Tinu's eyes, had shrunk down to the size of that gate. A place to wait, a place to fear, a place to swallow shame and helpless love. The boy who doesn't even have 100. The first time he heard that was at 13. It became the nickname the boys in the compound used for him for the next 4 years. Not because his clothes were torn, not because his slippers were worn out. Those things were too normal in a poor yard like this. What made Tinu ashamed was the feeling that he was always less money, fewer chances, less voice. Day after day, he grew up with the reality that a boy's value in this place was defined by how much was in his pocket, and he was always the one with nothing. Poverty pressed down on his shoulders like a boulder for years. No one saw it. No one helped him carry it. People only saw the hard-headed, hot-tempered boy who talked back to adults and fought with his friends. No one knew he was just trying to survive constant disrespect. The boys laughed. The evening wind blew through the yard, bringing the smell of dried fish and road dust. Tinu felt like his heart was being twisted, leaving behind a deep, hollow space. Right then, he swore to himself, tonight, no matter what happens, I must be at that viewing center. He couldn't stand one more day of shame. He couldn't stand one more laugh behind his back. He just couldn't. That afternoon, as the Lagos sun tilted down, casting long shadows over stained walls and rust streaks, the air in the compound turned a reddish-orange tone of sunset. A thin layer of dust rose with every footstep. Kids still ran around, their flip-flops slapping the dry ground. The smell of old frying oil from the Akara cellar at the corner mingled with the air a scent people here were so used to they no longer noticed. In the middle of all that noise, Tinu walked with a face nobody wanted to approach. He felt like everyone in the compound could see through his skin and into the poverty he was trying to hide. Since childhood, this yard was his entire world. Cramped, hot, noisy, and never enough of anything. People were so used to lacking that anyone with just a little extra was already considered lucky. And Tinu? He was the bottom of the bottom. The boy's laughter still echoed in his ears. Hey, the boy who doesn't even have 100. Those words hammered into his chest like someone tapping a nail into his skull, soft enough not to kill, but strong enough to drive him crazy if repeated long enough. He clenched his jaw, fists tight. Samuel, always the one mocking, would definitely tell everyone tonight. Tinu bragged like a big man, and still ended up broke. Just imagining that made Tinu's cheeks burn with shame. His life never had many choices. His mother, a single mom, raised him selling small items at Balagan Market. Face towels, socks, keychains, cheap little things people only bought when they needed them. Earnings were so low that one sudden rain at midday could ruin the whole day's sales. His entire life turned around phrases like, "Not having money makes people shrink. Pride is a luxury for the poor. Whatever you want, check your pocket first." But Tinu didn't want to live like that anymore. He didn't want to be looked down on anymore. He didn't want to be teased anymore. He didn't want the label, "that weird poor boy," anymore. He wanted to be like other boys his age, laughing loudly, going to watch football, buying sodas, arguing about players and teams: Chelsea, Arsenal, Super Eagles. And tonight was his chance. A small chance, but to Tinu it felt like the only bright sky of his week. As a kid, when he saw other children with new toys, new sandals, new schoolbooks, he didn't know what to do but bite his lip and look away. At the start of each school year, his mom had to borrow money here and there to buy him a uniform that always looked a bit older than everyone else's, but at least it was clean. To Tinu, poverty wasn't just the absence of money. Poverty was being pushed to the edge, forgotten, looked down on. Poverty was what made people bow their heads, even when no one told them to. Poverty made him feel small, like a faint shadow in the yard. But tonight, even if just for one night, he wanted to stand tall. He wanted to say, "I was there last night too." Just one simple sentence, but it felt like a key to a better world. He walked past the yard where kids were kicking around a deflated rubber ball. An old woman sat picking vegetables, her hands shaking but strong. A man in the corner drank cheap gin, face flushed. Women hurriedly scrubbed clothes in plastic basins. A neighbor shouted at her two wild children. Everything was familiar, but today, it all felt suffocating. Like the Lagos sky had bent down and pressed onto his shoulders, making every breath heavy. Samuel was different. His family was better off. He always had new clothes, white sneakers that stayed clean every time he stepped onto the pitch. He spoke to adults with the confidence Tinu wished he had even half of. And worst, Samuel knew it. He used that crooked smile to remind Tinu of it every day. "You're at the bottom, and you're staying there." As the sun went down, Tinu sat on the steps in front of his room, eyes staring blankly. He knew his mom would be home soon. He'd memorized her timing. That made him even more restless. If he didn't get 5:00 tonight, he'd be a joke for weeks. They'd bring it up every time they met. They'd laugh every time he opened his mouth. Tinu couldn't take it anymore. It felt like there was an animal clawing at his chest, trying to get out. A kid screamed in the yard. A woman called to a neighbor. A motorcycle roared by, leaving the smell of exhaust. All the usual sounds of the yard became sparks today. Then Samuel's words echoed in his head, clear as if he was standing right there. "You don't even have 100. Tinu clenched his fist so hard his knuckles turned white. Yes, he was poor. He knew that. But being reminded, having it shoved in his face, turned into a joke that was what shattered his heart like glass. The corners of his eyes burned, not from tears, but from anger. A quiet, smoldering anger that started deep in his chest and spread through his veins. Anger fed by years of disrespect, by poverty hanging over him like a long shadow, by the laughter of people who never had to taste the humiliation of being broke. That afternoon, Samuel and the boys had thrown the final match into the heap of his resentment. By the time the light was fading, cooking fires were being lit, and the TV in room 3 blasted the evening news. Inside Tinu's chest, a fire exploded. Not a small fire, not something easy to control, but a fire of wounded pride, of hurt, of blocked dreams, of reckless youth, of suffocating poverty, of never being enough. A fire he didn't know how to put out. It smoldered. It grew. It swallowed every thought. And when Mama Tinu stepped through the gate, her small figure etched against the burning red sunset, the fire grew even hotter. It turned into rage. Blind rage. No warning. No reason. And that was only the beginning of the tragedy that would strike that night. Tinu wasn't born hot-tempered. As a little boy, he clung to his mother like a shadow. Everyone in the yard remembered the boy of 2, 3 years old, hanging onto Mama Tinu's wrapper as she moved from stall to stall in the market. She sold scrap fabric, second-hand clothes, old shawls, a little bit of everything, nothing very valuable, but always arranged as neatly as she could. "Sit here, don't go anywhere," she told him each morning, placing him on a low plastic stool behind the stall. Tinu nodded, big eyes obedient. But a few minutes later, he'd crawl out, playing with cardboard scraps, picking up little stones, pretending they were cars, footballs, an army of tiny soldiers. Back then, his mom was his whole world. And that world, though small, hadn't yet been punctured by mocking laughter or the words "no money" repeated like a curse. His father left when he was about 5 or 6. His memories were just the smell of alcohol, loud fights thrown against the walls like glass bottles. Then one morning, the other side of the mattress was empty. No letter, no goodbye, just a hollow space and a woman whose eyes stayed swollen for days. From then on, "It's just you and me" became an invisible rope tying them together. But Lagos is the kind of place where ropes pulled too tight for too long eventually snap. At 12, Tinu learned what it meant to be ashamed of being poor. That day, the school organized a small fundraiser to buy a new ball for the team. Every student was asked to contribute a small amount. For kids from better homes, it was just the price of a snack. For Tinu, it was a big problem. He took the notice home and waited for his mom to return from the market. It rained that day. She came in soaked from head to toe. The tarp over her goods only covered some of it. A lot got wet and wouldn't sell. "Mom," he held out the paper. "Teacher said we have to contribute a little money." She read it, folded it, put it down. "I don't have it right now," she said softly. "Give me a few days to see what I can do." "But, teacher said we have to bring it tomorrow," he said, confused. She went quiet. The next day, when the teacher called each name, Tinu stayed in his seat. He avoided his classmates' eyes, even his teachers. When it was his turn, he stammered, "Ma, my mom said, maybe in a few days." Some kids giggled. No one said it out loud, but Tinu heard clearly. His family is poor. He can't contribute anything. For the first time, he felt a hollow space in his chest, not from hunger, but from standing outside the circle. After that, whenever his mom said, "I don't have money," it didn't just mean "we're struggling." It felt like a tiny blade cutting into his growing pride. At 14, Tinu began to change. He talked less with his mom, more with his friends. He stopped sitting at her stall before market opened and started sneaking off with the boys to play football on an empty lot. The kicks, the falls, the scraped knees became the only thing that made him feel just like everyone else. In the group, Samuel always stood out. Not rich, but miles ahead of Tinu. Better phone, newer clothes, decent second-hand football boots. He spoke with an easy swagger, always half smiling. "Hey, Tinu, why don't you try begging your mom for boots?" Samuel once asked, staring at his bare feet. Tinu shrugged. "We barely have money for rice." He forced a smile. "Boots can wait." Samuel wasn't cruel. He just never had to choose between boots and food. "Then wear mine sometimes." Samuel laughed, nudging him. "Our feet are almost the same size." That day, Tinu was so happy he forgot the boots weren't his. For a few hours, he ran like a boy finally free from the ground, touching something like freedom. But that night, when he returned the boots, they were still Samuel's, and he went back to his bare feet on hot concrete. Over the years, poverty stopped being just not enough money. it became an invisible label lurking everywhere. At the market, is that your son? Big and strong. Maybe he'll work hard and change your life. Because this place. In the yard. That boy doesn't even have 100 and wants to date someone's daughter. With his friends. Why call him? He can't go anywhere. No money. Those lines weren't meant to kill anyone, but they landed on Tinu's heart like small rocks, day after day, piling up. By 17, the age when boys are most reckless, proud, and easily triggered, he was carrying a whole mountain on his back, just waiting for a push. The night before the big match everyone talked about, Tinu lay awake on his thin mattress. Outside, music boomed from a nearby bar. Davido, Burna Boy, the sound of a world he could only smell from a distance. Cracks on the wall spidered out like all the unresolved wounds in his chest. He thought about Samuel, about the times his boys went to the viewing center while he stayed home, about Samuel bragging, "You know what? Last night, some guy at the viewing center bought drinks for all of us." He said, "You boys have to enjoy your youth." Enjoy. The word made Tinu furious. He wanted to enjoy his youth, too. But his youth was tied to fetching water, helping his mom, counting every coin. Every time he asked for something, the answer was, "Not now. Maybe next month. When I sell more. We'll see." When? No one knew. Slowly, a dangerous thought took shape in his mind. If I don't grab what I want, no one will give me anything. But in the end, he was still a 17-year-old who relied on a skinny, exhausted mother. He sat up, glancing at her lying with her back turned. Her breathing, soft and steady, was the only thing keeping him from totally losing it and smashing something in the room. He told himself, "I only need 5,000. She can give it. She just doesn't want to." And that was when his mother stopped being his only ally and turned into part of the wall blocking him. The first seed of anger at his mom, not at life, not at poverty, not at his friends, quietly dropped into his heart. No one heard it fall. No one saw it take root. But by the next afternoon, it would be a wildfire. That afternoon, Tinu ran round the compound like a boy who had swallowed a burning coal. The Lagos sun still flashed off peeling walls, making sweat gleam on his dark skin as it ran down his face. The road in front of the compound was a dusty haze, Danfo buses dragging trails of black exhaust behind them. "Big match tonight. If you don't go, you're a nobody." "All my guys are going," Tinu shouted, arms flailing as he faced the boys, forcing excitement and confidence into his voice. They clustered around the leaning pole and the busted Afrobeat speaker. The speaker was half dead. The bass was warped, but still enough to create the vibes the entire compound shared. Samuel, the quickest mouth in the group, glanced at him and smirked, rolling his old but decent phone in his hand. "Hey, how you get money, Tinu?" He dragged out the words, loud enough for everyone. The boys burst into laughter. The sound wasn't that loud, but it smashed into Tinu's ears like someone crushing a tin can with their foot. He forced a smile, acting like it didn't matter, though his spine was burning. "Money's nothing," he said, hand on his hip, building a wall of fake confidence. "When my mom comes back, I'll take it. I'll be at the viewing center tonight. Trust me." Samuel curled his lip, eyes narrowed. "Okay, let's see if you're inside tonight, or standing outside watching through the door like last time." Another wave of laughter. This time, Tinu couldn't laugh. He turned away, staring at the gate where every evening his mom came home with nearly empty bags and a tired smile. In that moment, Lagos shrank again to that crooked gate, where a worn-out woman walked in, and her son always braced himself. "The boy who doesn't even have 100. The boys had said that to him more times than he could count. Growing up in a poor part of Lagos made Tinu constantly ashamed around his friends. Not because of torn clothes or thin flip-flops, those were normal here. What killed him was always being less money, fewer chances, less voice. Poverty pressed on him like a rock. No one saw it. No one helped lift it. They just saw his stubbornness, his arguing, his temper, and they laughed. That day, he swore silently, "Tonight, no matter what, I have to be there." Near dusk, the sky shifted color from light blue to yellow. then slowly purple. The air was still hot, but there was a kind of electric buzz, the feeling of a football night coming. Mama Tinu came home, her shadow long on the dusty road, hands gripping shopping bags that were almost empty. Every step looked stuck to the ground. Mom, Tinu ran to grab one of the bags, half helping, half anxious. "You been home all day?" she asked, trying to smile. The smile couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes or the pain in her shoulders. "Yes," he said, but his eyes already shone with something other than worry for his mother. Inside, she sat on the edge of the bed, slipped off her slippers, and rubbed her aching feet. She pulled a worn-out wallet from her bag. It was so old, it looked like it might crumble if she squeezed too hard. Tinu stared at it, heart pounding with every slow movement of her hands. "Mom," he began, trying to keep calm. "There's a big match tonight, at the viewing center up the road. I need 5,000 to get in." She looked up, surprise flashing across her face before sinking into exhaustion. She opened the wallet. Inside, 1,200, the money for kerosene tomorrow, and a few stray coins. She counted it again and again, even though she already knew. "This is all I have, Tinu," she said, closing the wallet. "I need this for kerosene tomorrow. If I don't buy it, we'll sit in the dark all night. I don't care about tomorrow night," he snapped, the words jumping out faster than he could control. His face flushed hot. "I need the money tonight." Tinu, her eyes held that tired, helpless look he was starting to hate. "We're not comfortable. You know that. It's not that I don't want you to have fun. But where do you want me to pull money from?" In his head, the answer was brutal, clear. "Because you don't have it. Because we're poor. Because I'm always the boy without 100. The shame, the disrespect, the mockery, everything piled into one blazing flame. And today, Samuel and the others had struck the final match. He looked at his mother, and didn't he see the woman who stayed up nights worrying over him, who skipped meals so he could eat? All he saw was the person saying no to the one small dream he had that day. The room's heat mixed with the TV noise from outside, making the air thick. Outside, someone shouted, "Goal!" To Tinu, it sounded like someone mocking him. He slammed the door shut. The whole room shook. "You don't understand anything," he shouted. "Do you even know what they say about me? They say, a boy who doesn't even have 100. They laugh in my face. Do you understand?" She stepped back, one hand on the bed frame to steady herself. "Tinu, I know you're hurting," she tried, voice soft. "But using anger to pay back that pain will only hurt you more. I'm tired," he screamed. "It's always no money. Wait till tomorrow. Wait till next month. When do I get to live like a normal person, Mom?" "I'm doing my best," she whispered. "You think I'm not ashamed that I can't give you what you want? If you were really trying, you'd have money for me tonight." The words shot out, sharp as a knife. Even he felt like someone had slapped him after he said it. But the anger was too strong. There was no way back. "Tinu, you're being disrespectful." Her voice started to shake. "Calm down. You're letting your anger control you. Too late." In a single second, literally everything blew up. He lunged forward. His hands shot out, fast as a released bowstring. Before she could take one full step back, his fingers were locked around her throat. Her breath cut off as if someone had flipped a switch. Her eyes flew wide. Her hands clawed at his wrists. But Tinu looked like a different person, like anger had replaced his heart with a burning stone. "Tinu, stop." Her voice was choked, harsh, trapped behind an invisible hand. Her foot slipped. Her thin body collapsed to the cement floor, her scarf sliding sideways. Her fingers scraped the air, scraped at his hands, scraped at anything. The furniture shook with every desperate jerk of her body. A wooden chair tipped left, then crashed to the floor. A pot of hot water by the stove slid off the table, dropping in an instant, splashing across the floor. The clang of metal on concrete cut through the terrible silence like a blade. Tinu stood over her, breathing hard, face burning red with rage and wounded pride. His eyes were wild. He didn't see his mother. He saw humiliation, inferiority, mockery, all those years of hurt, standing in front of him wearing his mother's face. If not for the faint, strangled sound escaping through the door crack, "Help! Help!" Me. A sound dragged from the bottom of a crushed chest. Soft, weak. But enough. Enough to slip through thin walls. Enough to cut through Lagos noise. Enough to wake the protective instinct in another human being. Mama Esther was sitting in front of her room, chewing a piece of hot suya she'd just bought. She hadn't planned to listen to anyone's business. In this place, taking care of yourself was already hard. But that sound like a cat being crushed, like a guitar string pulled too tight, like someone hanging between life and death. She jumped up, the suya fell from her hand. She didn't even feel it. Something is wrong. Now, move. Her scream tore through the air like lightning in a dry sky. Within seconds, the whole row of rooms rushed toward number 7. Slippers slapped the dusty floor. Voices shouted, called, gasped. Someone pounded on the door. Someone threw their shoulder against it. Someone yelled, "Tinu, open this door, right now." No answer. No sound from inside but things crashing and a choked breath. "Move," shouted Mr. Ocone. The first shoulder hit the door frame shuddered. The second the hinges gave a little. The third the door crashed inward like a bomb had hit it. They poured in. For a heartbeat, everyone froze. Tinu on his knees. Hands still locked around his mother's throat. Face flushed. Eyes wild like a cornered animal. Mama Tinu mouth open. Desperate for air that wouldn't come. Eyes blurred with tears. Hands shaking. "Oh my God," screamed Mama Esther. Ocone didn't think. He grabbed the back of Tinu's shirt and yanked him off so hard, they both fell in opposite directions. Mama Esther rushed to prop up Mama Tinu, cradling her head, patting her cheeks. "Breathe, breathe, you hear me? Mama Tinu." One person splashed water. Another rubbed her neck. Someone fetched oil. Another cleared a space to drag her into some air. Meanwhile, Tinu was dragged to the wall. His hands shook uncontrollably. His eyes were red, full of tears from shock, from terror, from realizing what he'd just done. I didn't mean," he stammered, voice falling apart. I don't know what happened." No one answered. No one said, "He's still a child." No one said, "He was just angry," because everyone saw the red handprints on her neck. Those marks said everything no one dared put into words. No one remembered exactly what came first or last. The room felt like a twisted ball of sounds. People shouting, things breaking, her ragged breaths, Okone's yelling, feet pounding, suya hitting the ground, the door exploding. Then, when the storm eased, the only thing left in room 7 was a heavy, shaking silence. She lay on her side on the mat, breathing in short, broken gasps. The room felt like a sweaty palm squeezing the air. Some neighbors brought water, menthol ointment, warm cloths, but no one dared stand too close to Tinu. He pressed himself into a corner, eyes swollen like he'd been whipped, hands trembling as if they still felt his mother's skin. Her eyes fluttered, just a little, but enough for Esther to shout, "She's awake! She's awake!" The relief didn't last long. The bruises on her neck darkened under the dim yellow light. Not just one mark, but 5 long lines, deep and red-black evidence of a blind rage everyone had seen, but no one wanted to remember. "Get more water," Ocone said, voice still hoarse with anger. "Easy, let her breathe." An elderly woman placed a shaking hand on her forehead. Poor mother." Tinu heard. Every word was a blade. He bowed his head, trying to hide his swollen, burning eyes. She opened her eyes again, longer this time. She looked around the room like someone waking from a nightmare. Then her eyes found Tinu. No scream, no insults, no slap. Just a look that made him wish the ground would swallow him. "Ma." His lips trembled, but no sound came out. She didn't answer. She raised a hand to her neck. Even that small movement made her wince. The cruelty of the truth cut like a knife. Her own son had done something even a stranger on the street shouldn't he do to a mother. Esther turned to him. "If we hadn't broken in," she began, then stopped. No one needed the rest. Just thinking about it made everyone's skin crawl. Samuel and a few older kids hovered at the doorway, faces pale. They no longer looked at Tinu with teasing eyes. He wasn't the boy with no 100 tonight. They were staring at real fear, that anger could kill. She tried to talk, but her voice was so weak she had to suck in several breaths first. "Water," Someone grabbed a cup. Esther propped her up a little, letting the water touch her lips. Tiny sips, slowly, each second stretched like a drawn-out note. Everyone watched, as if their own breathing depended on hers. When she was done, she set the cup down and turned toward the corner where Tinu stood. He shrank back like a 7-year-old caught breaking a bowl, not a teenager who had just almost killed his mother. "Tinu," she rasped, voice so rough everyone had to hold their breath to hear. He looked up slowly, like each inch of movement was a nail being driven in. "What have you done to me?" Someone turned away. Someone wiped their eyes. Soft sobs spread around the room like a wind of grief moving through heavy air. He opened his mouth, but his throat closed. Finally, he managed to words, "I'm sorry." Too small, too late. She closed her eyes. She didn't cry, but her shoulders trembled just enough to show that the deepest wound wasn't in her throat. It was in a heart crushed by her own child. Esther shook her head, saying in a low, pained voice, "Anger without control is madness." No one argued. No one defended him. No one said, "He's just a kid." In that tiny room, the truth sat on everyone's chest. Tinu had gone too far, and no one knew if he'd ever find his way back. After they got her breathing again, Room 7 felt unnaturally still, as if it had seen too much. No one spoke for a while. Each person stood in their corner, catching their breath after the chaos. She leaned against the wall, a damp cloth on her neck, her breathing still sharp and uneven. The bruises on her throat grew darker, like stains her skin never wanted to carry. Esther knelt beside her, hand trembling on her shoulder. "You okay, Mama Tinu? Can you hear me?" She blinked once, twice. She tried to take a deep breath, but each inhale dragged sandpaper through her throat. I'm okay," she whispered, so faint the room had to fall silent. No one believed her. No one could. In the corner, Tinu stood pressed against the wall, his face drained of color, his hands shaking as though they didn't belong to him. He stared at his palms, still feeling the heat of her skin, the pressure, the struggle. Everyone in the compound had just seen something he could never undo. From the hallway, neighbors murmured, "We need to take her to the hospital. Look at her neck." All eyes turned to her. The swelling, the purple-black handprints, fear spread like steam rising off a boiling pot. "Yes, we have to," Okon said firmly. She shook her head immediately, even though the motion sent pain shooting through her throat. "No, I don't have money. Hospitals are too expensive." The words choked the room. In Ajangunal, living below poor meant, if the pain isn't killing you right now, you bear it. If you don't have money, you suffer extra. "We don't have a choice, Mama Tinu," Esther said. "You almost died." From the corner came a small, cracked voice. "Mom, I'm sorry." His voice shattered like broken glass. She didn't look at him. Not because she hated him. Because she was afraid if she looked at his face, she'd feel again the air disappearing from her lungs, the pressure on her neck, the darkness closing in. No one wanted to blame him out loud, not because they forgave him, but because they were more afraid of what might happen if she didn't get proper treatment. Still, whispers drifted around the room. "That boy, he really lost it. Kids these days, too dangerous. Thank God we got there in time." He heard it all. Each sentence hit him like a stone hurled into his chest. Okon looked at him, both sad and stern. What happened tonight can't just be brushed aside. He dropped his head, throat burning, his fingers curled as if he could scratch the guilt off his own skin. She took a long breath, forcing herself to speak. "Everyone, thank you. If not for you, wouldn't be here." The room fell quiet. Some nodded, some wiped their eyes, some just sighed like they put down part of a heavy weight. Finally, she turned toward her son. This time, her eyes reached him fully. No rage, no screaming, just sorrow. A sorrow so deep it made the room feel smaller. "Tinu," she rasped, "how can you put your hands on your mother's throat?" Over 5,000. He couldn't stand anymore. He sank to his knees, hands over his face, tears spilling like the lock had finally broken. Tears without words, just ragged breaths tearing through his chest. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I was angry. I didn't know what I was doing." His sentences fell apart like a child lost in a market. Nobody looked at him with complete pity, but nobody looked at him like a monster either. They looked at him like a boy who'd turned his own pain into a knife and stabbed the one person who'd always been on his side. When his sobs finally slowed, when everyone had seen both their pain, Esther shook her head and said, voice heavy, anger without control is madness. No one disagreed. No one added anything. No one defended him. No one condemned him. They all understood. That night, Ajahn Gunal had almost lost a mother and almost lost a son too if that rage had gone a step further. The air was so heavy that everyone leaving the room walked slower, heads bowed, as if each carried a piece of the story they never wanted to see again. On the second morning after that terrible night, Lagos woke up in its usual chaos: honking, street vendors, arguments at the junction, some radio warning that today will be extremely hot, avoid going out if you can. But room 7 was buried in complete silence. Not the silence of peace, the silence of a house that has just survived a storm and doesn't know if it'll return. Tinu hadn't slept, not at all. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her eyes bulging in terror, felt her neck under his hands, felt his fingers tightening. He sat curled in a corner of the bed, knees pulled to his chest. The 17-year-old boy who had always tried to look tough, loud, stubborn was now just a trembling shadow. His phone buzzed several times before dawn. Friends. The same boys who laughed at him. The same boys who pushed his anger to the edge. The same boys who had no idea what had happened. Big boy, you up? Europa match tonight too. Come to the bar, let's watch the highlights. He stared at the screen, lighting up and going dark. Didn't answer, couldn't answer. He stared at his hands, the hands that fetched water for his mom, touched her hair, took the plates she passed him, and the same hands that had almost killed her. His wrists were still red from where people had pried them off her neck. A long, angry mark stretched across his skin like a cruel reminder. You did this. The door didn't knock. No one called his name. It just creaked open. Loosely hinged with wire. She stepped in, body leaning slightly to one side, white bandage around her neck, left hand on her hip, right hand on the wall. Her steps were slow, very slow, not because of the pain in her throat, because her heart still shook. Tinu, she called, voice hoarse but firm. He looked up, eyes bloodshot. Sit down. He obeyed immediately. No questions, no talking back. He sat on the bed edge like a student waiting for final judgment. She sat across from him, hands on her knees, leaning forward a little. The air between them was thick as rock. No one spoke for a few seconds. Then, you hurt me, she began, voice soft but sharp as a freshly honed blade. But you're still my son. He broke down instantly. The crying came before he could stop it. Not the quiet tears of a teenager, but the raw sobs of a 5-year-old who's lost his way home. He cried as if not crying would make him explode. She didn't hush him. She wasn't the kind of mother who said, stop crying. She let him cry, let his guilt pour out where it could be seen. When his tears finally slowed, she spoke again, slowly, each word clear. But if you don't learn to control your anger, this world out there will swallow you whole. Not me, I forgive you, but the world. The world won't. The words lodged in his throat like stones. Mom, He couldn't form a full sentence. She looked at him, her baby who once lay on her chest the day he was born. The boy she carried through fevers. The boy she shielded from the worst of Lagos. Now kneeling before her, shaking like a leaf. You think I'm angry at you? I'm not. What scares me the most isn't what happened that night. I'm scared you'll do this to someone else. A child without control becomes a man who destroys his own life. Something shattered inside him. He dropped to his knees, arms wrapping around her legs as if she'd disappear if he let go. I'm sorry, Mom. Please give me another chance. I'll change. I swear. The last words drowned in tears. She laid one hand on his head. Light. Very light. But to him, that touch weighed like forgiveness and floated like hope. The next morning, the Lagos sun rose slowly, as if it too was tired after a night of crying and panic. Light slipped through the thin curtain, touching a room that still smelled like chaos spilled water, broken wood, the ragged air of panic. She leaned against the wall, bandage on her neck, eyes on the door like she was staring at another world, the one where she'd almost died. She didn't cry. Her tears had dried up. What was left was the quiet, stabbing pain only mothers understand. The wound caused by your own child has no medicine. Tinu stood in the middle of the room, arms hanging limp, like shadows of his guilt. He didn't dare step closer, not even one step. He'd watched his own hands erase who he believed he was. Now each finger felt coated with ashes. Son, his voice shook. I don't know what to do anymore. She closed her eyes. You start, she said, by never letting that happen again. The room sank into a heavy silence, but it wasn't as suffocating as the night before. Inside that silence, something tiny began to rise. Weak, fragile but real. Hope. That evening, Lagos was noisy again. The viewing center at the end of the alley glowed bright, fans yelling at the screen, arguing, laughing like nothing bad had ever happened. The city doesn't stop for anyone's tragedy. It doesn't retell your story. It just keeps going. But Tinu didn't chase those sounds anymore. He sat in front of room 7 with a broom in his hand. Each stroke across the ground was an attempt to sweep away a bit of the dirt, not just from the yard, but from his own heart. Through the crack in the door, she watched him. Her eyes were still tired, but softer. Not full, easy forgiveness. Not quick forgetting, but a thin, stubborn belief that there was still something good in her son worth saving. And so, even though Lagos outside remained loud and cruel, full of shoving, shouting, and noise, in tiny room 7, a place that seemed doomed to stay under the shadow of violence, a thin line of light appeared. A boy learning how to live decently again, and a mother learning how to hope again. The story of Tinu and his mother isn't just a tragedy in a poor Lagos compound. It's the story of many homes where anger sometimes outweighs reason, where wounded pride in youth can hurt the people we love most, where poverty squeezes people until they stop seeing each other clearly. 10 seconds of rage can destroy 10 years of love. Pride can make us lose the most important things: family, love, and ourselves. A poor mother may not be able to give her child 5,000, but she gives her whole heart. Knowing when to stop before it's too late is the mark of a truly grown person. If you're watching this and you've ever lost control with someone you love, remember, no football match, no teasing words, no insult is worth risking the life of the person who gave you yours. If this story touched you, if it made you think about how you handle your anger, if it reminded you of your own mother, hit subscribe so you don't miss more real, emotional life stories. Hit like if you believe family love needs to be spread. Share this video because somewhere out there, another Tinu might be needing a wake-up call before it's too late. And comment, tell us where you're watching from and what kind of stories you'd like to hear next. Thank you for staying with this story. Thank you for giving it your time. See you in the next one.